What's up, everybody? Marzi Montezeri here on We'll Name It Later show, episode number 6. And I'm blessed to be in between what I consider almost 2 symphonies. Thank you for being here, Bill. So,
our pleasure, Marzi.
Bill, I almost
love you, brother.
I messed up your last name.
Oh, Solley. Solley's not a big
Bill
deal.
Solley.
Solley. He calls me Solley Meister.
Solley Meister.
Solley Meister. Bill Solley Meister. The maestro and
Brennen
Mr. Brennen Nase, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Brennen, and who's a legend that I've heard about and seen on videos for so long in my life in Houston. We're both from Houston, but this is the first time I actually get to meet Brennen in person, and it's a absolute pleasure and an honor to be,
it's an honor to be
literally
here.
sitting between you two, and I hope that it's somewhere in between this interview, I get some of this. So
you be quiet. You're a great player, man.
I didn't even know about that.
You're a great player, man.
You know, just mentioning symphonies, it's because both of you on your own playing. You sound complete to me. I told your wife that when I hear you play, when I first saw you play, I went to Guitar Center. And then someone said, man, you got to go to this acoustic room and see the greatest guitar player in Houston. The best guitar player in Houston, something like that. I said, well, absolutely. I go in there, and within a few minutes, I was like, yeah, that's true. And I saw freedom in your playing. I just saw, like, total freedom. And you like, when you see certain people play, and you're like, they put you, and I saw Steve Morris when I was young at a music store, do a Texas Thomas Music. Skipping school.
Yeah.
Like
I saw him. The first time I saw him live was at the Zephyr Club in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it was in 92 or 93. I went and saw Steve Morris up there with a couple of my buddies that we used to play a lot in the area. I played with a band up there called Amnesia at the time, and we opened for like Bella Fleck in 92, and we did some pretty
Another
good
great
stuff.
player,
But
man.
Steve Morris, man, like, that's a different guy, man. That's a different guitar player altogether, man. Like,
he's a complete cat.
Yeah.
He just touches on so many different things.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I didn't know his repertoire, but he did pretty much his repertoire in that guitar clinic at Texas Thomas Music. I was skipping school. It was the day after Steve Morris had opened up for the trio.
Nice.
So I got to see Al DiMeola, Paco de Lucia, and John McLaughlin. I'm sitting there.
Great, man.
You couldn't find anybody good to listen to.
Right.
And I was skipping school the next day, and I was actually wearing the trio shirt, like a cutoff shirt. And I'm at the pick rack, and I got the pick open, and I'm like, this is a true story. It's pretty simple. I'm getting a pick, and I look over, and it's fucking Steve Morris, man. And I said, sir, what are you doing here? And he goes, well, I'm here to,
get picks.
He was getting picks, and he said, I'm here to do a guitar clinic, and from the looks of it, it's a great success. And he was being so sarcastic because there was literally no one there. No one. Wow. No one. Like, no one had said anything about this.
Wow.
I said, I was just too selfish about this. I was like, sir, I'm in television production. Can I go get a camera and videotape it? And he's like, sure. Man, I haul ass to school. I'm skipping school. I run into TV production class. Miss Shropshire, my teacher at Scarborough High School, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to do this. She lets me put this angle case, a camera. Wow. I run back, set up my tripod, put this up. I shoot Steve Morris.
Nice.
He was playing through this Ampeg amp that if I played through it would sound like farts, but he did like the introduction and like cruise control, and he picked up a nylon ovation and played like Go for Broke, and he did all this other stuff. And he goes, yeah, I'm a farmer and all this stuff.
He's
And
a
I'm
pilot.
like, oh
He's
my
he's a
God,
pilot.
I want to be a pilot.
He's a pilot,
He talked
yeah.
about being, this is prior to
Yeah.
him.
It's great, man.
And I was like, bro.
amazing.
And then, you know, I saw him in Kansas later and stuff like that. So anyways, that level of guitar playing is what I consider both of you. Sitting beside both of you, it's like me.
thank
It's
you.
like, you know, such complete people, like growing up loving like Pat Metheny.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, and there's so many different people. And then when I hear you, you know, Bill, when I first heard you, it was like when I both of you
Probably
like,
guitar. It was Guitar Center.
Guitar Center, but
Yeah.
I heard a whole band. You know that, you know.
Yeah, I
heard,
was probably doing that groove stuff, you know. Yeah, probably that funky stuff.
It was funky, but then you did this all these insane
then-
runs.
What was it? It's hard to do on this on the Simpsons. Yeah, I got the classical, but it's kind of hard to do it on the 7-string. You know, the classical thing.
Bill, tell me where you're from and where you were raised and born.
Well, originally, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, but I guess raised in New Orleans, and I lived in Savannah, Georgia. My dad was in the air, was aviator. Okay, so we moved around quite a bit, but I was about 12. I think you're going to ask me how I got into music. Is that kind of where this is going? Well, I was about 12 years old, living in Savannah, Georgia, and I had a buddy that was playing guitar, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And of course, there was great music going on. This would have been the late 60s. So Chicago band, you know, what's the guitar player for Chicago? What's his name?
The
Killer.
original guy?
Yeah, the original cat. He died, man.
He died. He shot himself by accident with a
Terry Cath.
cleaning his
Terry
handguns.
Cath. Terry
Oh, that's
Cath.
horrible.
But, you know, and I remember that solo, and I was like, and I'm like,
talking-
I'm
you're-
like 11
Talking about
years.
25 or 64,
Yeah,
that wah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
wah solo.
Yeah, it was killer.
Everybody bought a wah pedal because of that solo.
But anyway, I just remember, and my buddy played. He was playing, but he was just you know C D G stuff. You know, I was like, oh, that's cool. Can you show me that? And I was fortunate that my parents had bought a guitar for my brother, so we did have a guitar. I was actually interested in drums at first. I was doing the drum line. You know, I'm 12 years old. But anyway, so the guitar in the house. I picked up the guitar. I'm 11, 12 years old, and I'm learning D and G, blah, blah, blah. And then we moved. My dad got transferred to New Orleans. And then I met a guy there. His name was Richard Rhodes. He was like one of my first teachers, you know. And he was getting his classical guitar degree at Loyola University. And I came into the lesson, and he's playing Bach. Now, I'm 13 years old, right? And I walk in and I hear this and I'm going, what is that? I got to know this. I got to know what this is. So I dove through high school. I'm in classical guitar, you know. But even before that, I was into classic rock. I was actually in a band. I couldn't get in clubs because I was too young. I was actually in a rock band, you know,
Really?
doing Allman Brothers and ZZ Top and Doobie Brothers and all that stuff. You know, we're doing all that stuff, but then I got hip to that classical guitar thing.
So you did the classic rock thing, and then prior to
I
the
was
classical
actually,
bug, huh?
yeah, I was actually doing the classic rock first, and I remember doing Yes, you know, and the whole Aqualung, Jethro Tull. I was totally into that stuff. It was beautiful, and Steve Howe, you know, with Yes.
Of course.
Oh God, man, you know what's that?
Move through a day.
Yeah, Move for a Day. I was like, oh, I got to learn this, man.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was into that, and then, like I said, I got to the lesson, and he's playing Bach, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? I got to find out what this is. And then I dove head first into that. So all through high school, I'm in classical guitar, and then into college, I went to college and started doing that as well. You know, classical guitar, man. That's why I still do this today. This is all classical guitar technique. You know,
Yeah,
so
I
it's
noticed
you're weird.
he calls me that all the time, though. I'm used to it.
I noticed
Yeah.
your right hand fuses
it's
a lot of different.
It's all
Let me tell you, man. He turned me on to an Italian guitar player a couple years ago who I've been intently studying lately. His name's Matteo Mancuso.
Oh, Mario
and-
Mancuso.
his finger style.
And his right
Lord.
hand is insane. It's insane what he can do with his right hand.
Yeah,
it's like what in
it's
the
just
heck?
crazy, man.
Because I was raised solely in the world of jazz. I don't come from a mixed background like Bill does. My parents were all jazz musicians. My father was a killing jazz guitar player.
Yeah.
My stepfather was a killing jazz upright bass player and electric fretless player, and my mom was a really great singer. So when I was growing up, I'm basically a twin to the oldest of 7 kids in my family. And when we were born, they were playing 18-piece big band jazz gigs every weekend. Like she was singing them when she was pregnant with me and my twin. So I'm hearing bands before I'm even born. So like for me, I had no chance at all, none. And I started playing a guitar when I was about 3 years old. About 3 years old. My dad bought me a professional ukulele, a 4-string guitar.
I can't believe you started playing that.
And by the time I
man.
was 6, I could play more than 60 songs on it.
Whoa.
And sing 'em.
Let me tell you something about this guy. He's a freak. He's a freak.
Well, like I said, a lot of it
He's a
has to
freak.
do with it's just pre-training because it's what you're born into the world into. It's like for me, I had no chance. I was thrown into a world of big band jazz, full horn sections, saxophone, 5 saxes, 4 trumpets, 4 trombones. Like just big band, and Basie, Ellington, and then of course what made me want to play the guitar the most. It was the first time I heard George Benson play on a record.
Oh Lord.
And I'm like, okay, I have to play guitar like that. I mean, there's nothing else for me, man. And I knew it from the time I was 6. I looked at my mother going to the public swimming pool on a Saturday afternoon one day. I was 7 years old, man, and I looked up at my mom and I said, I know what I want to do with my life. And her, it was a 7-year-old. Oh, really? Okay, well, what is that? And I said, I'm going to grow up and
Let's
I'm going to
hear
play
that,
guitar
son.
just like George Benson.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to do. And that's
Wow.
what I set my mind to do back then. And then, of course, between then and today, because my stepfather was such a great bass player, upright player, both of my dads spent a lot of time convincing me to learn to play both equally well. Because he said, if you can play bass as good as you play guitar, you're gonna work way more on bass. And they were right, because I have. Like through the years, I've done way more gigs on bass than on guitar.
Wow, yeah, I've seen videos of you
Yeah.
playing stand up.
Yeah, I play both stand up and an upright fretless.
He's a freak.
Fretless. But like I said,
He's
and
a
then
freak.
the thing that Bill and I do with the Killer Bees, I love this so much because I think of all the things and projects I've done through the last 25 years, I think Bill gives me the most freedom of all of them. Like I can.
Well, thank you.
I'm more free to be myself, literally, because he writes good
Likewise.
music.
It
He
goes
just writes great tunes.
Absolutely.
And then he gives me liberty with them. He's like, all right, yeah, if there's something in there you think you'd rather change or something you'd rather hear, and knock yourself out, which normally there's not. I mean, his music's amazing,
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Brendan. I paid him to say that, by the way.
Well, and it was funny the way we met. Okay, so you'd asked him. I was born in Amarillo in the Panhandle in 1968, and I moved to Houston in 1980. Yeah, 79, 80. I was here by the time I was 12. And my parents went through divorce when I was about 3 or 4 years old. So
We moved to Houston.
So I was in Amarillo in the perfect time. Yeah, because I went to junior high and high school here.
You were here, right, at that time, Marcy?
I was here at the same time.
Yeah, we're about the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was going to junior high.
Yeah, I was in Sharpstown. I went to Sharpstown,
I went to
and then I went to
Clifton and then
PVA for
Scarborough.
1 year.
Oh,
HSPVA.
yeah, my son went to PVA.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. But
So I moved down here for the work primarily because the Panhandle. Obviously, if anybody's ever visited the Panhandle,
No, thank
there's
you.
nothing.
I'll pass.
Yeah, there's not really anything considered music work up there you can get on a regular basis. I mean, if you're a country band and you want to work Friday and Saturday for $100, I suppose you could do that. But I knew early on, and my dad, both my dads knew. Even my stepdad, he ran the jazz field in the entire Panhandle. So basically, that was his stomping ground. I needed more action. I'm like, there's not enough work here. So I called my dad and I said, hey, man, I want to move to Houston because Houston's fucking plenty of work here, man.
Oh, yeah, man.
And so Dad's like, sure, man. He didn't like small kids, but I was already a teenager and I was already playing seriously, like for a long time. So my dad knew what I was going to do from the get-go. And he's like, yeah, I'll take you. So I moved down here in 79, 80, that year. Started at Sharpstown Junior High School and then started playing on my father's bands at age 14. And 5 nights a week. So, like, unlike Bill, I was able to get in the clubs because I was with my father. So, like,
I don't know how you did that.
I had an axe over my shoulder. Well, in the state of Texas, it's legal.
Yeah.
In the state of Texas, it's legal for a minor
lucky,
to
man.
work in a bar.
That's crazy.
You can't drink
You're
in
lucky,
it.
man.
Actually,
You're crazy lucky.
To be legal in Texas, even as a minor, the bar can serve my father an alcoholic beverage, and then he can serve it to me, and that's legal.
You know, my father tried that once.
Huh?
Right here off of 290, they had the Playboy Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tried that once with me.
He did. Your dad
tried to
did.
pull you in?
Did they serve? Did he serve you?
Well, as soon as we walked in, this lady with the bunny tail walked up and said, he's too young to be in here. I was like 10, man. 9 or 10. I was all excited.
Oh, man.
But they turned us down. But I was like,
I
man,
think I might have
got
been
the bug.
excited going in the bunny club.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't even know they existed. But I went to one. You know, that's
Yeah.
how, you know, life.
The bunny club.
Well, I was lucky. Like I said, it worked out for me because, you know, right around that time, too, in the early 80s, business law as far as minors working in clubs is well known. It was actually discussed. A lot of the bar owners knew about it, too. So it was like, you know, a teenager walks in the bar with a guitar over his one shoulder and carrying his amp in his other hand. They don't question you. I just go set up and play.
You're lucky, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know,
It was
plus,
a different time.
Plus, yeah, we were under contract. We were playing 5 nights a week over
That
there. We
is
were
a
playing
lot of
And
Wednesday
you
through
were
Saturday. I was 14.
So you're working 5 nights a week, and he's 14 years old.
Yeah, I was making the same money my dad was.
So how are you doing in school?
I was passing. As a matter of fact, what happened was, as I told Bill, I went to school up until my sophomore year because, you know, I was already working full time. And so my dad looked at me and says, well, he says, I'm going to make you a deal I'm not making your brothers and sisters because they're not doing nothing, right? They hadn't decided what they were going to do. He said, I'll let you drop out 2 years early, but you got to get your GED this summer in July. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Because I got tired of getting up in the morning when I was like working till 1 in the morning.
Right.
It was getting up and going to school was a bitch.
Yeah.
So I dropped out that summer, and that was 84, 85, somewhere in there, and got my GED that same summer. So I had my graduation equivalency diploma, and I was working 6 nights a week.
That's amazing.
You know, my dad's like, I wish I could put all that money away. I'm having to spend all mine on our rent and shit, right? I'm just putting mine away, and we won't talk about what I spent that money on. In case there's young listeners out there, we don't need to know about none of that.
No.
You guys have made me not to look at this one bit because you're
we're giving you. Yeah, we're giving you.
I do want to mention your father.
Mike Nase, rest his soul. He passed away. Both my parents passed away about 4 years ago, and they passed about 5 months apart from one another. Mom went first in September, and then my dad went 5 months later, I think in February of the following year. So it was like five months apart. And, you know, I mean, both of them had, you know, neither one of them were in great health. My mother was a type 2 diabetic, and it started really kicking her ass back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then my dad, he had what we believe was just genetic problems with his heart. Because my grandfather passed away at 38 years old from an aneurysm.
Wow.
Just dropped dead, you know. Moved to couch, and boom, next thing you know, he's on the ground dead.
Dang.
Wow.
Didn't he make 40? So my dad was around 7 when his daddy passed away. So they apparently had, my brothers told me too, he's an ex-military, 24 years. He's told me that, yeah, genetically we do have some heart problems, blood platelet sticking problems genetically in my family. So he says, you might want to go monitor that. And I said, I ain't got no platelets sticking together, bro. I drink too much. My brothers he thought that was hilarious. He's like, dude, alcohol's not going to stop that. I said, the amount I drink every day will.
But, you know,
But his dad.
you're a Houston legend. You know?
Well,
and I got to tell you, the reason I say that is because, you know, we're about the same age.
Right.
And growing up, I heard your name so much, but I heard your name right there with you, and he always was like, you got to hear his dad.
Right.
You know, and this is like, you know.
Right.
Well, I mean,
80s,
it would make
90s,
sense,
early
especially
2000s.
80s and 90s, because quite frankly, like really 98% of my work at that time was with my dad's quartet. So you didn't really hear me play anywhere outside of his band. I mean, I did attend sessions, and by the time I had my driver's license, I was probably 16, I guess then, I would go to different places and hang out, sit in and do jam sessions, because they were still really hip here back then. In the 80s, we had a good scene here.
Yeah.
You know? There's a lot of great world-class players living here, and they're still here. Some of them
Your
aren't.
dad taught most of those.
My dad taught most of
the
them
guitar players
that are here now, yeah.
in Houston,
Yeah.
or the jazz.
And even some of the piano players. You know, like if you talk to if you talk to Mr. Joe Locascio out at Houston Community College, you know, he'll tell you, man, my pop was big time in educating him early on, you know. And they were doing records and stuff in the late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
And, you know, he brought in Chet Baker, for crying out loud, did a record with Chet Baker, like right at the end of his life. My dad's on some of that project.
It's great, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you know, through the years, my dad got to play with the biggest cats. He did a jazz standards Willie Nelson record back in the late 80s. I don't remember which standards he's on, but I think Willie put 3 of them out, and I think he's on the second of the 3. And I know everybody on that session. Their piano player at the time was
you did a session
cat.
with.
Oh, I did a session with him, but that was 5 years ago, and it was for something else. But
that's amazing. You both did a session with Willie.
oh yeah, man, we played with a lot of big people through the years.
I wasn't
Willie's
on
cool,
it, but he
man.
was.
Yeah,
You're gonna get to who you played with too, man.
Oh yeah, well, he's played with more
well-
famous people than I have.
Well, I mean, I've been fortunate, and well, you know, my wife Kim Prevost is an amazing singer.
Amazing singer.
Great singer, and we've been fortunate enough to tour around the world doing the duo thing, you know. And as a result of that, you know, you meet people, and you know, of course, we shared stage with Bobby McFerrin, Arturo Sandoval, trumpet, you know, just a lot of great people, you know. I mean, that's 2 to name a few. There's others I just can't remember, but it's, you know, a blessing to be able to do that stuff and meet great people and travel and stuff and do what you love for a living. We're blessed, or I'm blessed, you know.
And and it's a blessing to see you guys perform together.
Yeah,
you're a gift. So.
Yeah. Kim and I have been doing this for, oh my gosh, now I'm losing track. So we've been married we got married in 2020, and it's 23. So we've been married 23, living together plus 4, 27 years we've been together doing this stuff. We're pushing 30 years doing this stuff.
That's
man.
amazing.
And my wife and I've been doing it now for 22 years. By the way, my wife fronts a symphonic heavy metal band, and they're kick ass.
Oh,
You need to hear her metal
What's the
band.
name of the band?
Masked.
Masked.
Masqued. You'll love them.
Okay,
man.
man.
It's fantastic.
Check it out, man.
He mentioned some of the band members, and I noticed some of the guys. Yeah. I got a totally.
He knows both our guitar players.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you come in here wearing an Iron Maiden shirt.
Oh, I'm a man
ripping
for
this
Yeah,
jazz.
That's great. I love it.
First show in Houston.
He was telling me about. I'm sorry to interrupt you. He was telling me about Iron Maiden's singer.
Bruce Dickinson.
Do you know this guy?
You talk about
Marcy?
a badass.
Do I know him personally? No, but do I know of Bruce Dickinson? Yes.
Do you know about what he's accomplished?
Yeah.
He's the ultimate badass in the world.
I had no idea.
It brought you know, when I saw the video, it was, you know, Beast Around the World or something, like a Flight 666 or something. They went to Mexico, and you know, over there they don't just sing the lyrics. You know, they sing the riffs. You know, you're playing the Trooper. You know, you got 80,000 people going da 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 da, and it's insane. So that, you know, I was just like really getting emotional watching that, man. But then afterwards, he puts them on this enormous bird, like we're talking semis and stuff in there, and he flies them out of there.
Yeah,
and it goes to the next game.
So you know how that happened, right?
Crazy,
So let me give
but
you
he
the
was
backdrop.
like number 2
I didn't know
fencer.
that.
So what happened? Well, see, so when
I had no idea.
when they first started
I had
putting
no
their
idea.
records out, back when Number of the Beast came out, Killers, right? So they had a real good success line for about 5 years. So Bruce Dickinson decided 5 years after they've made all that money, he's going to take a break from the band. He goes to flight school and earns his pilot's license and his degree, but decides while he's there, I'm going to stay around and I'm going to earn a professorship and 2 doctorates, including mechanical engineering. And so this is one of the most educated people you will ever meet in your life.
Yeah, and the first thing I know about him,
he beat stage 4 cancer, and he's a professor, a doctor, a rock star, and a fucking airline pilot.
That's crazy.
That's Bruce Dickinson, dude. That Maiden, right?
And I knew him first as a fencer.
As a fencer. Yep, he's a fencer too.
He was like, they were like, this guy's like
World class.
number 2 fencer in Britain at the time, like number 2, like number. And then I saw some footage, and he was like, you know, this like, and you know, Bruce is so genuine.
Killer,
Iron Maiden was the first show at the Houston Summit with Wasp opening up that I got to go see, that I got backstage, and I was watching Wasp on their last song and whatnot. And I turned around, and Steve Harris and Adrian Smith were standing next to each other, and I'm telling you, I'm 14 years old.
You're
man.
going.
At first, I thought to myself, man, I thought they were taller.
Yeah, right. Well, because they are kind of small
And I
guys. Yeah.
said hello. Like, well, Steve, when you see those pictures, they're all from, they're all from down
From
here.
underneath.
Yeah.
And he's always got that Steve Harris stance, And I went in. Dave Murray gave me a pick. Nico McBrain gave me a cigarette.
Nah.
It was
at 14.
at
Nico
14.
gave you a cigarette.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It was amazing. It was an amazing show, and they were the nicest guys.
Man, I love that band. It's my favorite.
I had no idea about that
Power
singer, though.
Slave.
That's
He's
amazing.
awesome.
That's
Dude, that band is awesome, okay? Because you got to think about it this way, too. Yeah, I'm a jazzer. Yeah, I was raised in the world of jazz all my life. It's primarily my main source of music that I listen to. However, I do have that rock dude in me in here. There's that part of me over here that loves metal music. I love Maiden. I like Ozzy. I like good metal music. Now I would say I'm like Ray Charles. There's only two kinds of music. There's good and bad, right?
pretty much, yeah.
Because
It's
I
either
like
good- yeah.
most genres. I like classical music. I like funk. I like jazz. I like hard rock. I like country. Good country, especially old country, like Merle Haggard.
Wow.
The Possum. I mean, I like old classic country. It's pretty music.
I saw a quote from Billy Cobham, on the Gloss Menagerie album that he had done, a great album, and he said, when you listen to one type of music, your music end up sounding like a stick.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to everything, it blossoms
It
like
helps.
a flower.
Yeah, it helps.
And that's
It
how I
does.
feel as though, when you two play, it's like literally standing in between two gardens. And a garden, the whole world is made of flowers.
Yeah.
But in a garden, you got a gardener
Yeah.
that clips it,
Yeah.
the weeds away and prunes it, the flowers. And that's how I feel about, both of you are like different gardens and taking, and so there's so many different, I mean, I don't hear, Norwegian black metal in your playing, but
Well, it's kind of hard.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
just time
saying.
yet. Just wait.
but I'm saying
He's gonna get going.
music as
Throw it in the back pickup.
Back pick up.
as a whole, though, you both capture so much, and then, there's so much we can get into. But just let me quickly just jump into.
Yeah.
You guys are the Killer Bees.
Yes.
How did the Killer Bees come about?
Well, I think I'm gonna. Well, maybe I should let Brennan tell that story.
Well, it's a great story, actually.
I would love to know how you two. Because
Okay.
I know you moved here from New Orleans, correct? When did you come here in Houston?
After Katrina.
Katrina
Katrina.
displaced them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
basically, the way that if you want to hear the storyline from a native Houstonian, this is the way we look at it. So, right around 2004, 2005, Hurricane Katrina levels New Orleans, fucking levels it. Like I remember watching footage on the news. And I'm just
Horrible.
Like, well, one thing that us Houstonians knew really pretty quickly was that we were going to get
Uh-oh,
a big
here they
influx
come.
of New
And
Orleans
we had to
musicians.
welcome
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, but
Here they come.
guys like me, we were ready for them. We were like, yeah, bring them over here. We got plenty of freaking work in this town. There's a lot of work here. And that's exactly what happened. So Bill Kim come over here. Matt Limler, piano player from over there, came over here, who actually I met and started working with first before I met Bill, because that's how I met Bill's wife. Is I met his wife through Matt Limler's jazz piano player that's back over in New Orleans now. But when he came over here, they were all displaced, and he was needing work, and the guy I was working that club with at the time decided he didn't want to work there anymore. So Matt took the gig over and kept me on bass, upright. Brought his wife in. Well, I've been playing there with her a couple days a week, and then she comes up to me one night after the gig and hands me a CD of he and her. And, I hadn't heard him up to that point. So basically the long and short of it is we get done on this gig one night at Tommy's Steakhouse out on the Westheimer. And his wife was on the gig, and she says, hey, Brennan, she goes, this is me and my husband. Check this out, man. You probably dig his playing. I'm like, cool. So I went out and I got my van. I had a minivan at the time. Popped that CD in, listened for about 30 seconds, and went, oh, my God, I got to meet this cat.
Oh,
His guitar playing was fucking amazing. I'm like, I got to meet this
He
cat.
called Kim and said,
So I
put your
called
husband on your phone.
I called Kim and I said, hey, you around your husband yet? And she's like, yeah. I said, put him on the phone.
Oh, that is
So
great.
she put Bill on the phone, and he hadn't met me from Adam. I said, hey, dude, you're my guitar mate person. We got to do a duo. We have to do a guitar duo.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much how
even Kim hadn't even heard me play guitar yet. I was playing bass on that quartet. So I told him, I was like, no, I want to play a guitar duo with him. And so he called me exactly 1 month later and hired me to do a duo with him in Katy. And I said, hell yeah, I'll do it.
And we had a good old time.
We had a
didn't
blast, man.
Oh man, is there any recording or like anything
Of the first night, no, but all we did was we just called tunes we knew and played them, man.
But we do have two CDs.
We have 2 CDs out now.
Nice.
on Spotify or Apple Music, I guess. You can get it anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
And it's the Killer Bees and it's spelled.
It's under the.
And I have it spelled.
Yeah,
out in
Killer
the-
Bees was B''S.
Yeah, it's not BEE. It's B''S.
Because
The
Bill
Killer
and
Bees.
Brennan. So
Yeah,
we're,
yeah.
The Bees.
We're the
Bees.
bee guys.
We're the bees. We're the crazy bees.
You guys are the Crazy Bees. That is the most amazing story. Brennan, you knew.
Yeah.
30 seconds into it.
Yeah, it was weird, man. I mean, I could just tell by the way he played rhythm. I'm like, that's my perfect guitar player. Because I've always been very groove oriented too. Like this here's a good example right here. What is that?
I'm doing. We can do that one. Yeah. Sorry.
But it's all about it's a pocket, man. It's
Oh, you guys are so in the pocket. And then Bill, yeah, you get to dance, man.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
I give him.
and-
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's-
Yeah.
I'm the bass, drums, and guitar for him, and vice versa, and then he'll do it for me.
I see
the
that.
only difference
I see that, but
is
you do the same. As
yeah,
well.
the only difference is he has 6 and I have 7, so I get the. I'm fortunate.
You can get
I
down,
get-
you can get a little
I
bit
get-
down there,
I
a
get
little bit
the
lower.
low,
But
it
yeah,
really
but you know,
sounds like a bass.
in the right keys, though, I mean, even with the 6, you know. So I mean, you could do it too on a 6, or like just like even playing like bosses. The difference is I've always held a pick in my hand because
Yeah.
I was raised early on playing with one, and the other reason is because I, unlike most of the guitar players, I can't have any kind of nails at all.
See,
because
that's the difference.
because
See,
I
look,
play bass.
Oh,
And as you know, the
yeah.
bass strings will rip your nails right off your hands. So if you're a bass player, you're not going nails. So
No.
this was the only choice I had, you know. Except for I could play like Wes, which I play with me, darker soul.
absolutely, truly.
That's the nice thing about
amazing.
Example, what I'm talking about when you hear the difference between a specific guitar player that you've never heard before, and you know the second you hear him, you're like, okay, now this is the guitar player designed to play with me, because he's doing exactly the shit I need him to do that none of the guys that live in this town do. They just don't do it. I was probably the closest, you know, like even when I came back to town, when I moved back here in '96, I spent some time in the West Coast doing and developing the style I play today that I didn't play then, because although I played a lot of bass and I played a lot of guitar, I never thought about combining the two on one instrument until I saw a black guitar player in LA do it in like '94 or '93. And I thought, holy fuck, I can do that. I never thought about doing that. But if I'm playing duo gigs with singers all the time, I'm like, why can't I, you know?
It's very similar to what I do, but in a different approach. It's a little different
What I'm
approach.
doing is,
It is
I'm
a
kind of
total
developing.
different.
It's a little different, but you know, it's like metal players. You guys, are
It
metal
is.
players.
I've never seen it.
This, I'm
Yeah.
using a metal
Walk a
right
bass line
technique.
like that.
Right,
Sorry.
but we can walk that bass line. What I'm trying to do is separate the tones by making these short and staccato and kind of almost percussive with the pick.
Right,
And then
right.
you let the top four ring out, and then you get two sounds out of the guitar. Right. So, and then when I heard him doing what he was doing, I'm like,
Oh,
you
this
see me,
is
I'm like
awesome.
the kid in the candy store going, give me the phone.
Yeah, you guys are so together, and you know, like, you know, you go on and then you get back on it, and the things you do in harmony, and it's just like, and it's like none of it is just normal, man. It's this
thanks.
is so out of my realm, man. But it's like I love music, and to watch this, and to be, I don't know, I felt so blessed to be sitting in between.
Well,
that.
you know, I mean, I think
There's
that's one
so much
thing we all
freedom.
share, man. We all share this really, really inner passion for making music. I know, I always have. It's funny, my father said, you know, when I pull out my guitar, when you guys were infants crawling around the floor, he said, your twin sister, and your brother would take off. He go, you'd bobble up and sit right in front of me and would not move for 2 hours while I played my guitar. He goes,
That's
I knew what
crazy.
you were going to do immediately. He goes, the other two didn't have the interest, but
They
he
didn't.
said, you always did. So anytime you pull the guitar out, there's Brennan up there just listening.
Yeah.
You know, and so I always had a love for the sound of the instrument.
And Marzi, you got in young, right? You started young, didn't you?
I did. For me, it was like I was an experiment.
Well, I mean, like, were you 10, 9, 8,
I was
7?
7 in
10.
Iran when I got one, but my brother broke the neck, so I had a desire for it. But back then, we used to walk by a music store on the way to soccer games. My uncle would take me on Fridays, and I saw this red electric. I had to have it.
Wow.
I was 6 or 7, and then when I got 7, they bought me an acoustic, and they said, electric guitar would electrocute you. It's dangerous. And I was so young and naive. I was
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
okay. So I didn't have this upbringing. Like, I was like literally like just.
Well, I mean, you know what?
Man, I mean, I hear the story, and
I
I'm
didn't have
like,
my first electric instrument
wow.
until I was 14. I mean, I played
You
all
had a
acoustics.
ukulele when
Yeah,
you
I
were
was-
3.
Yeah, I had a
you
ukulele.
like baby
and then
Mozart,
I had a
bro.
half-size guitar,
Yeah.
Stella. By the time I was 6 and a half, it was a 6-string, but it was a Stella. You remember them? They were sunbursts.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had a half-size Stella, and that one lasted me until I was about 13. And then my dad finally turned me on to that 75 Gildex 500, same one that George Benson played in the 70s. That was my first jazz guitar, 17.
It's amazing. Like I said, I know my own story, you know, which is like almost like I said, an experiment. I took that one first guitar and tuned the tuning pegs where like you could see the glue.
Yeah.
You know, it was like sitting off. You know, I didn't know. My dad's friend came over one time, tuned it, and then played like a King song. That was the first time I heard anybody play like anything. Was like I saw bar chords.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I know my journey, which is like I have never had lessons. I never knew how to tune a guitar. I
You're
never
all
like
self-taught, Marzi? Pretty much.
I went like the Houston radio stations were like my teachers, you know, but I never even had a guitar. Till I got into high school, I saw this Cuban guy named Frank Villegas play guitar.
Yeah.
And he played, first thing he did was play Mood for a Day. Then he played Rush.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting there watching him because he put the record on. And then he started playing with and he had a little pedal board with like
Exactly how I learned.
like a Gibson 21, and I was like, it took me a minute I was like, he's actually playing along. He was so on with the tones and stuff. I thought he, and I was like, hey, excuse me, can I use your phone? And while he was playing, he was like, sure. And I called my best friend Bloss, who plays drums in Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah.
And he was a blue man. He played in a band called Slaughter and whatnot.
Wow.
Best friends in high school. Was a Bloss. You got to hear this dude. So he changed my life, you know. And all the, but other than that, I still didn't know. I was just watching cats play, you know, and like I worshipped Eddie Van Halen. Sonically, I was moved, but like physically, I was like really left behind. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do any of it. I had to I learned all the skills and how to put notes together and stuff after I
was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
just fishing, man. Fishing, just putting spending a lot of time and just going like, I really know the C scale pretty well. I know that because I was just fooling around and just like, I would like learn intervals.
Yeah. It was. There's no flats and sharps in the C scale, which kind of helps. I mean, you see it better on a piano than you can the guitar, but you know.
And then Eddie played in it, and I just was like, you know, I learned how to do a pentatonic scale, and I still to this day, man, I'm like I'm learning all the time. I come up with stuff on accident.
So am I.
Yeah,
I've learned more from this cat in the last 10 years than I've learned from anybody, man.
After
vice versa.
So I'm signing up for lessons after this. That's a big part of my, you know, one thing I learned, like a lot of it was like I learned in playing metal and stuff like that. A lot of stuff I had like organically had stumbled onto certain techniques that I was like playing the bass stuff and the electric, but like hearing like Eddie doing the you know, I was like, I want to do it on one string, and like shit like that, you know. Or like watching Eric Johnson like this close, but still not figuring out how he was doing I guess it comes from Julia Brahmi, you know, like the harmonic playing.
Yeah, some of the harmonics. Yeah, I actually saw him. I went and saw Eric last year, or maybe a couple years ago now. I saw him at the House of Blues.
I just saw him at the House of Blues. Exactly. I love that. But Eric would get up and he would fret a note and bend it here and do some of that at the same time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he would use the Japanese scale doing it. And I never in my life had figured out that. I've done chords, you know, but he would go, and he would just get the Kodo scale in there and like he'd do some crazy stuff. He changed my life at 16 because I seen him live and I thought, you know, I heard him be mentioned twice. And I thought it's Steve Ray Vaughan. He's from Austin. He plays blues.
No, he's very different.
You know,
very different.
Me and my brother went to see him.
Very different.
I was 15 or 16. My brother was 12 or 13.
What's funny, man, the last time I saw Eric Johnson, I have both feelings in the same concert. There were times where I'm like, God damn, nobody can touch this motherfucker. And then there were times where I'm like, you might not should be playing this song.
I would say this about Eric. I just saw Eric play. And again, he opened up with Cliffs of Dover that night. You're a young teenager and you've heard Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and, you know, Michael Schenker.
Yep.
And then, you know, these guys are ruling the world and, you know, other people, you know, like I like that, you know, Andy Summers and stuff. Mm. But Eric Johnson, I'd never heard that tone, that clean guitar too. But he opened up with Cliffs of Dover. Like he played Manhattan that night. Yeah. He did things. He did those harmonics. I'd never in my life had heard that. So that moved me.
Oh,
so
man,
again,
he's great.
Again, so these were like for me personally. These were like sonically like hearing Eruption on the radio. Well, on a Delco system in my dad's car.
I'll never forget the first time I heard that.
Yeah, it's the same with me. I mean, first time I heard
Crazy Train.
First time I heard that harmonic, that stuff. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, that sounds like
I need to know what that is.
I need to know what that is.
It sounds like bells. And there's a new guy playing, and I don't know his name, but he does it, and it sounds. His whole style is that, and it sounds like
like
bells.
Yeah,
the entire pieces sound like bells.
Yeah, they get it going
fast. So let's pick on Eric Johnson real quick. For
pick
one,
on him.
I got to open up with it for him, and I have no idea exactly. But I will say this:
there's really not. I mean, like I said, you know, even the comment I made earlier, I can even tell you more. I can even be a little bit more direct about what it was. he started.
Was
trying
it a
to-
tonal
he started
issue?
No, it wasn't tonal. It was a style issue. It was he tried to play it was some kind of a country tune, and it was kind of like a country shuffle. So it was kind of like it was moving pretty good. But that just doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't do a lot for Eric in his style, because Eric really don't play that style of music that much. Like he
I
not
always
really his
think of
thing.
Eric as more of a sort of a rock kind of.
Right, like a fusion guy.
Americana rock.
Right.
Like,
but his time, it just basically, in my opinion, it just kind of, I would say it kind of it highlighted a bit of a weakness in some of his time playing over certain grooves. Now, like I said, one song later, he does this other original tune he writes and blows your mind. You're just like, what? I mean, what is that?
Yeah, his
This
country
amazing
playing
sound,
since,
man.
I just recently saw him like not too long ago, and his country playing is like it's
It's just not what he does.
Yeah, but it's I would say it's up to par now, man.
Well,
because
it's probably
like,
are. I mean, it's okay, but you could say that until you start talking about people like Brent Mason.
Brent Mason.
Yeah,
I was about to go
real
there.
country players that are like
The Helicasters. Oh yeah, when I heard
moly.
Brent Mason was one thing, and then that he's in the league, but then you get Jerry Johnny, he's bending three notes.
Well, Vince Gill's
strings,
a
I'm
great
sorry.
guitar player.
Oh, Vince, oh Lord, yeah.
Vince is a great guitar player. Most people don't realize how
There's
actually
a
good
lot
of a
of
player he is.
unheard guitar players. Well, no, I shouldn't say unheard of, but they're kind of not in the mainstream. Carter Arrington, I never heard of this cat. He was in Austin for a while. It's a beast of a player. Stratocaster.
I'll have to look him up. I'll tell you something really popular. Someone real popular that a lot of people didn't know who was good growing up was Glenn Campbell.
Oh God, Glenn was one of my favorites.
Great.
And Jerry Reed.
Jerry Reed and Glenn Campbell.
So I got a question for y'all. Who came first?
Glenn.
No, not that. Jerry Reed or Foghorn Leghorn?
You would probably know
say
that.
son.
Brendan.
Yeah, I would have to say Jerry Reed came out first. Jerry Reed was first. Foghorn Leghorn and the Looney Tunes cartoons themselves all came out in the 70s, and they were in the
Because
early
they both
70s.
referred to I say son.
I'll say boy. I'll say boy.
Yeah.
But he was
He was about as
son.
sharp as a bowling ball. I keep throwing them and you keep missing them.
I love it, man. That girl.
That's my favorite cartoon character.
I
man.
was just learning English.
The big rooster. You're talking about the big rooster.
Yeah, Foghorn
yeah,
Leghorn.
yeah. So I'm at home and he's got he got the chicken hawk, and I'm
a chicken hawk.
That's
I remember
really
that.
kind of like how I'm learning how to speak the English from
speak
watching the Three Stooges. Man,
Oh,
this shit would have me
Three Stooges
rolling.
was great.
But man,
You
this
and
dude
that
goes.
ironhead he is.
This dude goes. She reminds me of Highway from Fort Worth to Dallas. No curves. Man, I about lost it, man. I was just learning it, and then watching the Stooges.
Stooges are great.
Bo
Curly.
Curly.
all
He gives
of them.
Curly a fish. He goes, scale this fish, because they're like in the kitchen, and bro, he puts it into his mouth, and there's like he does this,
Like
and
it's a
there's
piece of corn.
and then it was a harmonica going, and there was they had it overdubbed,
great.
and that made me. I'll never forget it. Scale this
Stooges.
fish.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's funny you brought
Stooges are
Looney
killer,
Tunes
man.
up
So
because
killer, man.
Yeah.
I have the entire Looney Tunes library on DVDs. I have them all.
Yeah, that's
All of them. I've got all of Foghorn Leghorn, all the Wile E. Coyote, all Sylvester. I got them all.
And I will tell you
The
a legit
Roadrunner.
All of those.
yeah.
The legit question I used to ponder myself, I'm being truthful. I would get to certain points, I would see certain cartoons over and over too, and I'd go, did they write the music for this cartoon, or did they write the cartoon for the music? It would
Oh,
the
yeah, it's
marriage.
interesting.
The
Yeah, it's
marriage was
interesting.
so interesting. It was just like, wow.
Yeah.
The
Well, actually, I can
compositions.
answer that question too because
I think it came after the fact.
It does.
right?
Yeah. So what they do is the animators they animate everything you see in mobilization, so it moves, and they can move it. In the old days, it was basically they would draw 1,000 drawings, and then they'd stack them on top of each other, and then they would just movement. You'd see movement, and so they get all that done. Then what they would do last is they would go into the sound engineering booth. And they would put the people that were doing the voiceovers would come in and they could see everything up on the screen so that they knew when they were supposed to talk. And then you had the live orchestra in the back watching the same screen with all their charts. And they're going, okay, man, we got to play in this. And so they're adding the
amazing,
music
man.
while they're watching it live. That's the way they're putting the music down.
Well, somebody probably wrote it first. Somebody probably looked at it,
Well, yeah. Well, I'm
and
just saying.
Then
But
they
the music,
performed it live.
like what I'm saying is, if you're watching a Looney Tune cartoon or an old, let's say the Mystery Machine and Scooby Doo, all those in the '70s, all those stuff, the music was done after all the screen stuff was done because they're having to do it based on what they're seeing.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so well done.
Oh, it's great.
It's
Disney,
so
I mean,
well
well,
done.
Disney spared no expense back in that day. Now, Looney Tunes isn't Disney. It's, I forgot it. What is it? I forgot what company put them out. I don't remember now, but I know they weren't Disney, which was another kind of thing I liked about them. Looney Tunes was its own thing, man. You know, it had one guy doing all these different voices.
He was
Earlier, his name was Mel Blanc. Yeah.
Mel
Mel
Blanc.
Blanc and his
Yeah.
son too.
And his son, but I
But
mean,
Mel
when
Blanc
you
was
think
a
of
hero of
it was
mine.
amazing,
You know, I used to sell, I saw an interview.
He did Bugs Bunny.
He did
right?
them all.
He did them all.
He did every one of the Looney Tunes
That's
characters.
insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He was an incredible talent.
Well, you have any other questions for us?
Absolutely.
What you got?
So we
Hit it. Hit us.
Well, you mentioned your CDs.
Yep.
Okay, so and earlier on, you hadn't been playing for. What are your future plans?
Oh, for us as Killer Bees or
Yeah,
individually?
are you going to put another CD out or an individual? I would love to know.
Well, I mean,
And there's so much more we can dive into, but I mean, ultimately, I want to jump off of this seat and go up here and get my camera and watch you guys play again. But
okay. Well,
it's so interesting to have you both here. Tell me, what do you guys going
okay.
on?
So, well, me personally, I mean, of course, me and Brennan have our thing, and we've got 2 CDs out, and then of course I'm working with Kim, and so that keeps me busy pretty much. Kim and I stay fairly busy doing the duo thing, and then we started doing a quartet, me and Kim, which I think you had mentioned you saw maybe a little bit of it.
Yes.
With the sax player, and
Yes.
the drums.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got that going now, and then of course Bren and I have our thing, and that's the 2 things for me. I mean, what we do, and I got my stuff with Kim. And
So that's
yeah,
you do the thing with Kim's and the band now.
yes,
Or do you,
yes,
you guys
yes,
still do solo gigs, dual gigs?
yes, yes.
Okay, so you
yes,
do 3 things.
I do 3 things. Yes.
Yeah, we're kind of. I mean, it's kind of the same over here. My wife had been a full-time professional teacher in the school system for about the last 14 years, and this last year she decided to resign because the workload via the pay was just not matching anymore, and she had no time to herself. She's gone 50+ hours a week. She wasn't getting a chance to do much anything else. So she resigned in favor of going into private teaching and then doing basically what Bill and Kim are doing. We're doing a lot of dual stuff too. Bill and I are both actually in the same chain of restaurants out of the Galleria, in which we're going to both be in rotation with 2 or 3 of their different restaurants 2 or 3 days a week. He and Kim will be there, and then my wife and I will be there on the days he's not there, and then we'll be doing as
So
much
come
of
out
that
and
as.
have dinner.
I'm going to be coming out and having
Yeah, we
lots
might
of
even-
dinners,
Come
man.
out and have some dinner.
I am.
And
I am.
since the management of this restaurant chain likes both of our duos, we've also mentioned to him that we have
Yeah.
our duo too. It's like we don't use singers; we just play with 2 guitar players, and so they're probably going to work that one in too. Because I've talked to Andres about it. So
Yeah, Killer Bees is such a treat, and to have you both in Houston doing this.
man, having this man's original music to play has been amazing.
Your compositions are absolutely amazing and beautiful.
Well,
I was
thank
watching Arrival last night.
Did you watch that?
Absolutely,
Oh.
yes, and it's just you're playing again is so complete, both of you, and it's so well diverse, and it's storytelling at its finest, through
thank
notes.
You. Thank you.
You
Thank you,
know,
Marcy. I
and
appreciate that.
It takes. I mean, I can dive in so much. I can't imagine the amount of time you'd put into it.
Well,
Brendan,
yeah,
your
it's-
story yourself with like being born into it with your family.
Yeah.
Your family is absolutely just. It's you're a freak, man. You're
He
like
is a
you're like
freak.
H-Town Mozart.
It's kind of crazy
Yeah.
because it's funny of all the siblings I had growing up. Now almost all of them have a pretty natural gift for music. Like they have really good pitch, they have good time. That any of my siblings were capable of becoming musicians. That none of them had any interest. They just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I had 2 of them that were actually they did play for a while in junior high, and they were great. My brother Baker was a good singer. What did he do? Joined the Air Force, went 24 years, and now he's retired.
Same
and
thing
makes
in my
way more
family,
money
too.
than I do.
Same thing with me. I've got, there's 5 of us.
Oh, wow.
And I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Crazy enough to do this stuff.
Yeah, that's about what I think it does take. I think that's what it comes down
Either
to.
crazy or you both harbor insanely enormous amount of love in your heart.
I think it's more about love.
It's probably it has to be that because God knows we ain't getting rich doing it.
It's a love.
Or like sometimes it's a little bit of both, huh?
Yeah, it's a love thing. It's for sure. And yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for harboring that love, and
yeah,
it's it's when I hear people play,
and I have to read it. I'm sorry.
That's the other thing, Marcy, that's really hilarious.
What's that?
He knows all this music, right?
Yeah, he's got like a photographic
But after
memory.
10 years, I've memorized almost all his compositions, and he still has to read them.
Oh, well, that's you're a different animal.
He's a different animal.
And you can, I saw you, sir.
It's a weird thing.
I do the memory thing myself because I can't read. But like all the bands that I've joined and stuff like that, I've had to go old school, like put it on. It's like, and then learn stuff.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting concept because the way he grew up, which is really great because he used his ear, for you.
I was first trained this way.
Which is great. And I did some
35.
I did some of that.
So you do know how to read?
I do read out. Yeah,
he reads.
Wow. 35.
I was 35, closer to 40 before I really
way
learned how to
past
read.
being a complex.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, it was funny. My ears were so good in the 90s. I lived in Vegas for 3 years and worked the Legends and Concert shows out of the Imperial Palace. And what was so great is I was probably the only guy in the pit orchestra that couldn't read an ounce of music. But it didn't matter because I knew every artist's piece of music and I knew exactly how they went from the record.
Wow.
So I could walk in there and play their shows without opening the book.
He's a freak.
I love that. That's so loud. I love that.
So we
man.
had a
That's
steady,
so rock star. Man.
We had a steady gig at the Marriott, just me and him playing. And we'd come to the gig, and I have my tuner on, and he'd have no tuner. And he'd be in tune. What's going on here? You got no tuner, I got a tuner here, and you got no tuner. He goes, I just do it by ear. Oh, gee, thanks.
Wow. So I
have perfect relative pitch.
I could probably
That's
tune a guitar.
awesome.
I could probably tune a guitar to pitch pretty accurately without a tuner. I'm sure I get pretty close.
I tell my dance students, I'm like, if you want to know the truth is it's just memory, man. Like a pitch is a memory because it's vibrations per second. So you can remember what a pitch sounds like. You can remember what the pitch sounds like, whether it's metal C on right. Sharp, flat, G. I know what all the pitches sound like, right? And because it's memory. It's like I just memorize what they sound like. So anybody can walk over to a piano anytime they want and hit any random note on that piano, and I can tell you what it is.
That's amazing.
Just by hearing it. Because I remember what it sounds like.
Yeah, but not everybody has that.
No.
Ability.
I think you can learn it. I think you can learn it.
Well, I think sometimes you can hear a song in your head. Maybe try to remember the song in your head, the key, maybe that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's
what's funny. My singer all the time. She's hilarious because she'll send me a text with a video link, and she'll say, "What key is this in?" I'll listen to 30 seconds of it. It's in D, and send it back to her. She goes, were you even did you have an instrument around you at all? And I'm like, no, I'm in my car. She's like, how the hell do you know what key it's in? And I'm like, because I know what the key sounds like.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Did you want to hear some more music?
Yeah, but I want to first thank you both.
Marzi, love you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us to your place, man.
Yeah,
thank you. It's
digging your guitars too. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
Again, big thanks, and I'm gonna jump off the seat and watch you play.
Okay.
I really don't know what to say. Thank you for not just being here, but
I'm glad we were
thank
able
you
to
for
do it.
playing guitar, and thank you for playing it the way you do, and it's so complete. And Brennan, all these years, man, I lived in Houston, and it's just like, always like, because I come from a different culture and different
I'm surprised
background.
you guys didn't meet
You
sooner.
it's funny. I've seen him before.
So just like kind of like coming up and watching how guys, they were always blues and country dudes, and stuff like that. Jazz kind of like, but to have you and then hear your story, man, it's just. I always like this is so for me. It's like one of those things written, and it's like a fairy tale story, man. Yep. It's like you guys were both so meant to be.
I
and to do what you do. And it's beautiful. And I thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I won't say
Thanks,
anything.
Mark.
I'm going to jump up. Please
Yeah, we'll
play
play
away.
later.
I'm going to get my phone out and record.
Bye.